I call to order the Personnel Committee of June 7th, 2022 at 4:02 p.m. First order of business is the approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve.
So move.
And is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 3, public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't think we have anyone in the room. Is there anyone online?
To the agenda item.
Great. Okay, we will move on then to item number 4, agenda items. Item A, bilingual incentive draft policy and procedure update from the focus group. And I'll throw it to Sarah.
Absolutely. So we have 4 members on our focus group. We have Officer Juan Henijos, who is on this call today, who's going to share with you our draft policy and procedure. We also have Katie Bogacki, who's one of our social workers in the Senior Center, and Jesus Villagomez, who's one of our career firefighters. So all of them, the audio is skipping on Joe's end. Just got a message on the Zoom Fact TV. So Juan will give I'm going to share my screen so you can see the draft policy while he's going through it. And Juan, can you hear us okay? Oops. Juan, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, it was skipping for me. Like Sarah said, my name's Juan. I work with the police department. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today, but we're going to go through the. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine. Now you just went on mute. I'm sorry, Juan. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Just one moment. Should be good? Okay, we should be good now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I'll start over. My name's Juan. I work at the police department. I apologize I couldn't make it today. We had some training go kind of late here. But I'm going to kind of go through the policy and kind of the background about this bilingual incentive and how it kind of all got started. Last year during the employee contract negotiations with the police and the city, the police union thought it was really important for us to offer kind of that bilingual incentive to officers. And then after having some discussion with the city, it kind of turned into a proposal that where all full-time city employees would get this benefit, especially with taking over the town of Madison and our growing Latina population. We thought it was very important to compensate employees that are able to communicate and offer customer service kind of through the city with their bilingual abilities. So Sarah, Jesus, Katie, and I first started meeting back in March. We've had so many meetings, working really hard together to get this bilingual incentive program kind of together. We've drafted policy, came up with procedures and all that stuff. So I'd like to personally thank Sarah, Katie, Jesus for all the work they've done with this. I know it's taken a lot of meetings and a lot of work together to get through that. We'll start going through the policy here. Obviously, the purpose is to kind of compensate those full-time employees that are able to communicate in a second language. I'm not going to read everything line by line, but kind of summary. All full-time employees are going to be able to get compensated. What we're thinking is roughly about $1 an hour for the employee that is able to speak. The 3 languages that we kind of identified through research is Spanish, Hmong, and American Sign Language. Those are the 3 languages that are more predominant in Fitchburg and kind of the town of Madison as we take over here soon. So we kind of established that employees would test every 3 years, and the testing is going to be through a third-party company that we identified that a lot of bigger companies and cities use. Some of those cities are Dallas, Texas, Reading, Pennsylvania, Los Angeles, California. Those are big cities that are using this company, along with some private companies like Delta, Wells Fargo, and a couple other big ones like that. And each employee will be able to test, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but once, and if they fail, they'll be able to retake within 6 months.
So employees that fail the exam will be able to take it every year, so they get a new opportunity every year. And it's for part-time employees too, so not just full-time employees.
Yep. And then the nice thing with going with this third-party company is they kind of have a very specific and detailed criteria for each level. The company that we have chosen has up to 12 levels, kind of 12 being the max, and we established that level 9 was the kind of the passing score. And we've had a couple of employees that have taken kind of sample tests, and they've been able to reach that level 9, both native speakers and non-native second language speakers, which is great. If we keep scrolling through this, let me see. Anything else that I'm missing?
Well, no, you did great, Juan. The only other thing I wanted to add was we just sent out an all-staff survey to find out how many employees would be willing to take a bilingual test. We had about 14 that responded back, and they all said that they could speak Spanish. So these are video testing. So Juan took the test. It's with a company called Alta Language Solutions, and it's about $76 per test. The dollar per hour increase of rate of pay is something still being talked about. At negotiation time, the city and the union did agree to a 50-cent pay increase to be added per hour. So this is something we'll have to cost out and see if we can instead offer the $1 based on the focus group's recommendation. Of course, that's always pending budget approval and administration approval as well. I think that's it. Juan, did you, anything else that we should share?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think it's really important, to note that, our population here in Fitchburg and town of Madison has a vast majority of Spanish-speaking families. I mean, I'll even throw the statistic out that I researched last year was that almost 33% of town of Madison residents only spoke Spanish. Which I think is really huge. And along with this kind of program, we discussed establishing kind of a list where people and departments can kind of pull from this list to help in case there is a citizen, or especially from the police, fire, EMS aspect, and if somebody needs help and they really want to speak with somebody in person that can help translate versus using something through the phone. Which I think would be a great benefit to the city and being able to offer that great customer service that we already do.
I got a couple of questions. So is it, the testing is just verbal? Is there a written component, or is that just verbal?
There's not a written component, so it's only verbal. And it's it's not a recording, so you're actually talking to someone on the other video. It's a video test. So, yep, it's only audio.
And then obviously we might not run into this, but if somebody spoke Spanish and ASL, they took both tests, would it be one bonus, or would they get a bonus for each language that they were able to speak?
It would just be one bonus.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else from the committee?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So how do you come up with the $1?
So we looked at other municipalities. So City of Madison pays $1 per hour for all hours worked. Dane County pays 75 cents. per hour. We were trying to look at what others are paying who do have the bilingual incentive and making it worth the time too of the bilingual employee. You know, if it's an extra $1 per hour, that's definitely something more beneficial for them to be able to offer up their time. Because as Juan said, we're going to have a whole list of everyone who's bilingual. And then if we have needs at the front desk or other departments, that we would be able to tap into those employees.
Most of the research that I did with law enforcement agencies, $1 was kind of where everyone was as far as compensation goes.
Alderman Alfredo, you have the floor. Keep going.
Yeah, my other question about, I know that you mentioned it's only a verbal test, but also, you know, we are using a lot of, translating a lot of information into Spanish. And my recommendation to the city is that we should have working with a translation company for all of that, because I know that sometimes we have internal staff that, and you know, that they do some of the translation, but this is not the correct one. I don't have any problem. I have helped a lot with the translation, but I am not consider myself a translator. But I think also we need to have that, we need to contract with a company that specializes in translation for all the written documentation, especially if they are like legal or more, you know, HR stuff that they can, you know, if you choose the wrong verb, you change the meaning of all the sentence. So we have to be very careful on that when we're translating from English to Spanish, you know. So that one my recommendation, because I have seen stuff in Facebook sometimes that is wrong, you know. So that one is, my other question is, why only verbal and not written? You know, because when the people say that they are fluent in a language, your fluency means that you can speak the language very comfortable at a high level, not only reading, writing, and also speaking. So this one is a fluent people. So why you are choosing only to do a verbal test, you know, a written and reading? Because sometimes maybe, suppose an EMS I want to tell you what happened in our Latino community so you understand. So most of the people are getting the medicine. They bring the medicine from Mexico, or there are some stores here that they bring a lot of sort of medicine that is coming in Spanish. All the prospect, the content, the boxes, everything. So suppose that we have a EMS, they go to a situation and they say, what medicine are you taking? And they give it, here it is, it's in Spanish. So I imagine that the people, they have a high level of speaking. I am assuming that they have a high level of interpreting and understanding the written of the language. You know what I mean? So I am giving that, you know, so, but I want to understand why verbal and not a complete set of skill that we are testing to this individual. You know what I mean?
I think it was a lot of the testing options. Juan, do you recall, did they have reading and writing tests as well, or was it mostly verbal communication?
They do have some reading and writing tests. The company does offer that, but I think if we kind of see those other options, the cost will go up. I mean, I can personally say in my job as a police officer that usually 99% of the time it's translating just verbally. Very rarely do I ever have to translate any documents or read anything.
But my other, now with the absorption of the town of Madison, you mentioned, Juan, that most of 33% of the population there are Spanish speaking, and the city, in order to reach out that community, and we will need to translate more documents that we usually translate right now. And I know that that one is not part of the employee, but this is the other, my other, you know, that this is what I want to stress out, that we need to work with a translation company for all of those purposes. But yeah, So I have other questions.
Alder Maldonado, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just put something in the chat. There was actually a report put out by United Way in 2018, the Immigrant and Refugee Task Force, and they actually had a recommendation specifically to what's being referenced here. So it's the page 6, item 3.3A2. And if anybody's watching on the public, okay, you got it up on screen, great. So yeah, there was actually recommendations like put out, and this was a committee of different, folks in leadership positions through community agencies, local government, the sheriff's office, MPD. Actually, Alder Wheeler was on this committee to kind of specifically make, these processes more accessible for Spanish-speaking populations. So I'm definitely in support of a pay bump. It'll bring the right people in, and it'll incentivize, folks who have the actual skill sets.
I have a question in terms of, so $1 pay bump.
Yep.
Do we create an annualized version of that for people that are salaried employees?
Correct. So, yep, exactly. So, and this would be just a one set dollar. We'll try this out. We don't know if it's going to be $1. As of right now, as I said, the negotiations, they agree to a 50-cent increase for all hours worked. So it's still up in the air. And today's is just informational for you. We're not taking action on the policy yet.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And then, in terms of like our cost of living adjustment increases every year, just like for a situation like this where you have a bonus based on a very specific skill, do you do a COLA adjustment based on the base pay and then you add that 50 cents on it every time? Or is it a 3% or 5% increase based on the full salary?
They'll get the same COLA increase as everyone else, but they'll always just make at least $1 or 50 cents more than their counterpart, somebody in the same position. So they'll still receive the full COLA on top of it.
And then, Alder Rutherford, do you have additional questions? Or, and then, so what's the next steps with this?
Yeah, so at this point, we just need to see if what the budget will, what the numbers will come out to if we're to implement this. Guessing we'll have anywhere from 14 to 20 employees that take part in this and take the test, and then we'll want to cost out, 50 cents versus $1, and then just see if we have the support of the mayor to put this in his budget, and if so, then we can bring it to you for approval of the policy and procedure, likely around budget time, so after it's been approved through the budget process. Yep.
So that one is going to be, so I want to understand, so the next action is you want this to be included in the budget.
Correct.
So you want to wait the budget time. What happens if the mayor doesn't include that?
Then we would look to one of the elders to
Okay.
put a budget amendment
Okay.
through. Yep. And we wouldn't be looking to implement this until January of 2023.
Okay.
Yep.
That one was my question.
Yep.
When? Yeah, okay.
I just want to echo what Alder Rutherford pointed out about translation services, and I know that's a separate issue. And I think generally I think a lot of the interactions that I anticipate these staff will be verbal, but that doesn't mean that we have to deal with the written communication. It's come up many times, and I think it's only going to come up more and more as we absorb the town of Madison. So I think we need to look about how we can do that in a way that's not piecemeal.
Right.
And relying on like Alder Rutherford has said, on a service that can guarantee that the translation is accurate.
Well, point of clarification on that item, Sarah, would hiring a translation service be a personnel, is that something we bring up in personnel committee, or would that be different?
No, they're not employees. So, I mean, if we know of a company that we want to use, then we can just get some estimates from them, and then likely maybe there's a contract or RFP process. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know it wouldn't be through the personnel committee. It's not an employee that would be on staff.
Do you know what committee it would go through if we wanted to
Oh, we do.
pursue that option?
So the senior center, Joe just told me senior center does have a translation company. So we have used translators in the past for large events like the police chief process. So I mean, we do have contacts in the community that we can reach out to that do this for their role, for their position. So we could reach out to those services if needed.
Okay, well, I don't want to get too far off track with like personnel in this particular thing, but I'm wondering if we wanted to say, like, go through the website and make sure we have if you show up, to a meeting and you would like translation, click here or something like that, just so we have some sort of mechanism in place. Do you know would we just go straight through the mayor and the council, or would there be a specific committee that would go through finance or?
We'd have to establish some type of process because sometimes we have to reach out a month in advance to get a translator to be on site here. So like if there was a council meeting and we wanted a professional translator here, we would want to reach out sooner than later. So we would have to establish some type of process.
No, those one are interpreters. They're different.
Oh, translator, interpreters.
Interpreter,
correct.
sorry, I misspoke.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got
But
it.
still, I would imagine still in that case, there would be a need for some sort of advance notice.
Chad, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of moving parts to this part of the conversation. It's my understanding, and I could be incorrect, that the senior center's translation is only available over the phone, which would be more like interpretive work. The city has used translation services in the past. I'm trying to think, there was a recent situation within the last year or so, and I think, Alder Radafrada, you weren't necessarily pleased with the services that company had provided. We'd have to do some research on to find out who that particular company was, because we have historically relied on staff to provide that. Use some outsourced services for a project, and it didn't turn out as well as we had hoped it would. So I think moving forward, what I can do is I can make a note for myself, and as I'm talking with Misty and the mayor through the budget process, we can look to see which department might be the most appropriate to potentially request some funding in the budget process for translation and or interpretive services, depending upon what the need and the scope would be.
I also think that just as a general point, maybe in the near future, it seems like an ad hoc committee to deal with this comprehensively and also bring in members of the public that are primarily Spanish speakers and making sure that we're creating processes that actually serve the people that need them versus just talking about this on a staff level. So something to consider for the future. And if there's no other discussion, I think we'll go ahead and move on. Okay. To item B, reclassification of community development planner.
Yeah, so we have a vacant community development planner position. That was Wade Thompson's position. We recently, Deanne, our new planning and division director, went through and made some edits to the job description, really to highlight the project management that is in this position, and being really kind of the lead on developing and administering the community spaces and community programs. So really just updating a job description. And going through that, we realized it really warranted a study from our consultant to make sure the pay was accurate. So in the packet, you're going to see the job description with all the track changes, the job description questionnaire, and then the recommendation by the consultant that it does move up at least one pay grade on the non-represented pay scale. So Deanna's here if there's any questions. We hope to get this posted right away, so we are looking for your approval tonight on this position being reclassified into this new pay grade, and then we'll get moving on recruitment right away.
What is the current pay grade and what is the?
So it went up just one pay grade. So it was in pay grade I. It went up to pay grade J.
And how much is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna open up our pay. I'm gonna share our pay plan so you can see that on the screen. So just bear with me. so if you want to take a look at your screen here shortly. Let's see. And then, yep, it's taking some time here. Sure. There we go. All right, so up in front of you, we have the non-represented pay plan. So you're going to see the different pay grades. You're going to see here pay grade I. This is where our associate planner is. So traditionally, the community development planner and the associate planner were in the same pay grade. The community development planner does much more project management and is really leading these community programs. So you're going to see it's going to be just one pay grade higher. The minimum there is $32.04 per hour. So it goes from $30.06 per hour to $32.04 per hour. And then our hiring range is anywhere between steps 1 and step 6. So we can hire now between 32 and 36, whereas if we didn't reclass, it was anywhere between 30 and 34 per hour. It's a non-exempt hourly position.
Yeah, I looked over the revision. It looks good. I have no issues with it. Is there any other discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I have. In one, I don't find it. So in one, it said that it's going to help with the transit analysis. Is that correct? Or you remove it? But my question is why this person should be doing that instead of the traffic engineer.
Let me see. Am I on?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So can't remember exactly where that was in the job description, but it isn't that this position would be doing transit analysis or actual transit planning, but this position, as we're trying to communicate in the job description, is kind of the link between different departments. So that this position would support the transit planner and the transit engineer to make sure that what we're doing as a city is coordinated between planning, between public works, between engineering, between parks. So this position is a real key position in that it's that bridge across the different departments. Does that kind of make sense?
Okay. So the other question is, why do you increase to 4 years of professional plan instead of 2? Because that one is because we are increasing from I to J. In the educational and experience requirement, before it was 2 years of professional planning, and now it's 4 years of professional planning.
Alder Radafrada, can you speak into the mic more?
Yeah, I have a microphone here. Okay, under education and experience requirement, before it was only 2 years of professional planning. Now, you're recommending 4 years of professional planning.
Yes, I am recommending and supporting 4 years. This position, it's a higher level, more skilled, more experienced person that would need to come in and handle really complex projects and be the main project manager for the planning documents like the farmland preservation plan, the neighborhood plans, handling the minor comp plan updates, working with the Parks Department on their planning exercises. So I think that just given the complexity of the work that sets before this position, that to get the right person in this position, we really need to have someone with more experience than what was originally on this job description. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Alder Maldonado?
Yeah, I would just make a revision to a revision. On the first page under essential functions, the North Fitchhatchery Road Hub Project and the Verona Road West Teen Center project are crossed out and just sort of recommended that they lead the development of community spaces and programs. I would keep those items in and add like comma and other community spaces and programs as needed. I think it's important to call out both of those projects because they were pretty central to the work that was being done in this position.
I would politely and respectfully advocate that we do not do that, largely because it's a position description, and those shouldn't necessarily identify specific projects. Council obviously sets the direction and priority for the projects in which staff would be working on. Those can change over time, and I think that it would be best to keep any position description general and not have a mention of specific projects, unless, of course, that particular employee was hired specifically to do a project, i.e., a community center manager, for instance, those sorts of things.
Can I? So, yeah, I know that I understand that we shouldn't include that in the job description, but this is my call to Diane that this is a very important project that, I know that Joe coming from the teen center, I am very involved with the hub, and what we want to try to say is that we hope the next person that you hire, work in this project. Because now Wade is gone and we need someone to, a person to be in charge of this project and of future project like that, but I agree that we shouldn't put that specifics in the job description. But I am, talking to you and say, this person should be working on this project. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and certainly this position as drafted here is carrying on the work of Wade and the community development, really important, strong role of community development, and the planning department and the community development planner will continue to work as directed by council. That will definitely continue.
Is there any other discussion? And then just to clarify, we do need a motion and a vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
So I'll entertain a motion on the community development planner position.
Okay, I have another question.
Oh, go ahead.
What is under license and certification? Maybe you need to put in parentheses what does it mean. I know that people that are applying for this position know, but for the rest, AICP, I know that is a certification, but if you can.
Yes, we should clarify that.
Yeah.
Yes, we can easily add that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Great. So Alderaan, if I would like to make a motion. Oh,
Do I need to make a motion? Oh, so.
well, I guess, do I have a motion to approve the community development planner position description with the small change as just was outlined?
So I need a second.
Can I make the motion, or do I have to have a committee member make the motion?
So you can make the motion, and we just want to make the motion that we approve the reclassification of a community development planner to the new pay grade.
Okay.
Yep.
So the motion, I'll make a motion to approve the reclassification of the community development planner from pay grade I to pay grade J.
Second.
And all those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item C. And we'll go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution R-10322, amending the 2022 general fund budget, additional deputy fire chief. And I'll send it to Chief Joe for.
Yeah, thank you. The referral is before you. This is an amendment to the budget to be able to address the command staff deficiencies we're seeing right now in the fire department. Last year, actually, at the beginning of this year, one of our paid on premises deputy chiefs retired, creating a vacancy, and there's a number of different hours that he filled, basically to the full-time level at a part-time salary. And so right now, what's happening is we're seeing quite a bit of that vacancy being filled by me, for example. And one of the papers that I just shared with you on the second page, you'll see some of the overtime hours that are being extended, not only from our full-time folks in the way of regular overtime and mandates, but then if you look over at the line item underneath my name and Deputy Chief Grosson's, you're seeing that I'm filling anywhere from 110 hours to 169 hours, and actually this last period I think I was at about 180 hours for a 2-week pay period.
Okay. Where is that?
On the second page, toward the bottom, you'll see overtime. Yeah, sorry. And then you'll see underneath my name and the 2-week pay period, it gives you an idea of what type of hours I'm working. Now, that's to fill the void, and it's intended to be temporary. The good news is I live in the city of Fitchburg, so some of those hours are filled from my home. I take a car home, but that leaves me with little discretion as far as what I can do on my free time. So I'm not sitting here to complain or pat myself on the back. I'm just suggesting that that's not sustainable. And as you start looking at somebody who's eventually going to fill my position, I don't know of how many people would want to promote into a position where they're working that many hours. So I think from a sustainability standpoint, it needs to be addressed. And we have the type of community that's growing to the point where we have to consider what that means. Now, where the deputy chief position comes into play is it allows me to separate some of that work between the work that I do, that Deputy Chief Grosson does, and then ultimately what another deputy chief could be doing as well. And that's just a start. That's to lessen the load. It's not going to eliminate the load for me. It's not going to eliminate the load for the command staff. But it's a good start to get us headed in the right direction, to be able to predict what our next needs are going to be from a staffing standpoint. What I will say to this effect is that we do know that this was somewhat predictable. We've been asking for these positions for a while, and I know that the city has a number of different priorities. We're not the only department within the city, so there's been some hard decisions that have had to be made. But as we continue to move forward, I think one of the things that will help us out community-wise is that municipal staffing study that was discussed. I know it hasn't been approved yet. It's been discussed, but that's going to pay dividends to help us determine what our priorities are as a municipality as we grow. We also know that with the attachment to the town of Madison, our call volume is going to go up about 300 fire calls, and by fire calls, that's also false alarms, alarm investigations, those types of things. It's also to the tune of about 900 calls with emergency medical assist. So Fitchburg is going to see that, we're going to see that, and that's just the reality of taking on additional population. So some of that is to address the overall need. Now, similar to what was just said with the planning position, we would be looking at using an existing job description that already exists for deputy chief. I would be very cautious as to identify assignment as much as what their overall qualifications need to be in order to promote into the position. From there, I would like to be able to, as fire chief, delegate certain roles and responsibility based on assignment. And those assignments would be specific to the functions that needed to be filled throughout the department. So what I'm looking at initially is these two deputy chiefs would have one would have more of an administrative role, one would have more of an operations level role. Administration looks at things like policy and procedure, equipment, procurement, and a number of different things that have to do with things like building and grounds, whereas operations is looking at day-to-day emergency operations to include training and things that are needed in order to stay on top of our response. And so that gives you an idea of what we're looking for, the overall need for it, and the fact that the department is slowly transitioning away from the paid on premises type of department that it was in the past. I truly believe that we will be able to accommodate the paid on premises combination department for a long time, because we're always going to have younger people that are coming into the profession that need education and exposure experience. But what we're finding is those that stay in the profession as a paid on premises or part-time member are starting to slow down because of other responsibilities that they have in their life. It's very difficult for somebody to work 8 to 12 hours in their primary job and then come and fill a 14-hour shift at the fire station as well. It's not impossible. There are those that do it, and we celebrate those people. We're grateful to have them. But from a recruitment standpoint, we're seeing that those numbers nationwide are going down. So we just need to be able to predict that so that our response, I'm not coming to you at the last minute, or anybody who's sitting on the council at the last minute and say something along the line that we're in a crisis situation. I do believe that we need to address these staffing issues sooner than later, but this is just one example of how we can start making those steps toward a more appropriately staffed fire department.
Great. So I do want to clarify in terms of how much money, so it sounds like it's like the 67,000 from the lieutenant promotion, but the resolution also references 120,000 of the paid on call budget.
So what we're doing is we're taking the paid on call, paid on premise, the POX budget that has been established, taking a look at our annual trends, and also taking into account the $60,000 that was paid to Rich Roth last year on a part-time level, and utilizing those to adequately fund this position. So it's money that already exists within the budget. It doesn't take away from the need for lieutenants. The lieutenants were a way of being able to address some of the frontline leadership that still exists within the fire department. The deputy chief addressed the command staff that is obviously raising its need based on the number of hours that certain personnel are working.
Okay. It just seems to me that it's almost, so we're already halfway through 2022. So for a $142,000 position, we'll only need
for this
70.
year.
Yeah.
So looking at
you're preparing for the future, so we don't create a structural deficit. Is that
correct?
Okay.
I was going to use the word structural deficit, and you
great. So that's the question, though.
Yeah.
So you're arranging it so that this can be sustained into future years, but
correct.
for this year,
we
have more than enough to cover it. But for the future years, you'll be able to restructure, assuming, hopefully, we can put more money toward it, so we can do both. But assuming all things stay the same, you can be able to continue to fund this position.
Yep. So from a responsibility standpoint, to be able to adequately fund these positions, we need to look at everything. So that's where we involve finance. That's where we look at the maturity of TIF and TID districts. That's how we identify what types of tax dollars are coming in. So we are not operating beyond our municipality's ability to pay.
Great. Does any of the rest of the committee have
yeah, I have
questions?
plenty. Can I go? Okay. So, I am all in favor of this, but I am very disappointed, you know what I'm going to say, that you're using the lieutenant promotion to cover this. Because, I think we fight very hard in the last budget to get this promotion, and now we are saying, no, we don't need it. We are going to use it. So, it's very hard for me to swallow this, to be honest. This is what my question is. Can you find the other $22,000 in your in your pay-on-call fund, because from where you're taking the rest of the money, can you find another 22,000 and we cannot touch the promotions?
We could find that for this year. As far as sustaining that over the long term, that would be difficult. So from our standpoint, what we wanted to do is to make sure that whatever we were funding was sustainable from year to year to year. I don't disagree with you. I mean, based on the work that you put into the promotions that were funded for this year, we are able to do what we're doing now. It's a lot more difficult for us to fund a full-time chief position than it is to fund the promotion positions, just based on the number of dollars, right? And here we've been able to prove where, since we had somebody leave the organization, we showed the amount of money that we were spending on that salary. We also showed the fact that we have this need from an hourly standpoint that lieutenants are not going to be able to fill long-term. What we also know is that these promotions for the lieutenants are still very much in discussion. It's something that we definitely need to consider moving into the next calendar year. But it was one of those things where we're trying to take advantage of the opportunity that exists for the position that we need right now and the vacancy that has been created, also bringing into light the overall necessity from the command staff perspective. There are certain things, and I'll tell you right now, from a lieutenant standpoint, there's a lot of things that they're doing, but there's some things that they just can't do based on the fact that they're part of the collective bargaining agreement through a labor organization. They can't get involved in things like discipline and in employee performance from a supervisory standpoint that way. What they are able to do is some of the direct leadership from a day-to-day with getting tasks accomplished. Ultimately, when it comes to the overall need for command staff, it speaks to the ability to be able to command things at certain levels. That includes budgetary items, financing, and overall discipline and counseling.
So I need to understand this. So you're telling me that the lieutenant, they cannot be supervisors?
The lieutenant actually, by definition, it depends on whose definition you use. I see them as a frontline supervisor from the definition from a fair labor standards standpoint and from a collective bargaining standpoint. They're more of a frontline mentor. To me, it's splitting the atom, because you are absolutely supervising somebody when you're giving them the direction to be able to do their jobs and to do it safely and to do it effectively and efficiently. From a supervisory standpoint that says that they issue discipline, that they're not issuing discipline, they're recommending things to a command staff officer that can then take it to that level. So there are some limitations from the lieutenants, but there are so many things that they can do as well, which is why the need hasn't gone away. It's one of the things that I shared with the city administrator, with Chad, that you know, this is a tough decision. I just know that right now, based on the hours that I'm putting in and based on what I'm hearing from our line staff, that this is very much a need that needs to be filled now in order to positively affect things like lieutenant promotions in the future. It gives these lieutenants, whoever we would be promoting, a first step supervisor that could mentor them through their next steps. So there's very much a progression that we looked at. Looking at the logical versus the emotional. The emotional tells me I need these lieutenants. The logical tells me this command staff officer needs to exist in order to make these positions as frontline officers more predictable and more competent.
I want to do another follow-up. My only concern is you mentioned in your memo that that you will need to have this lieutenant promotion considered for the 2023 budget. Okay, so I think it's going to be a very hard thing to pass, to be honest with you, because the council, we have the same council, and the same council can say, we gave you that last year. You choose this one or this one. You want the chicken, the eggs, and, everything. So, so that one is how we are going to try to sell this to the council during budget time that, yeah, I need this promotion again.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And my question to you is that, I assuming that when the council approved this last year, there were maybe some people in your team that they were expecting to be promoted as a lieutenant, how this is going to affect them because, morale-wise, you know what I mean? Like, they are not getting this promotion.
Yep, so one of the things that I'm fairly confident is that we have an internal candidate for the deputy chief position. I can't say that for sure. I know that we have at least one, possibly multiple internal candidates. So the promotion of this deputy chief position opens up a lieutenant's position, which still allows us to promote. It's 1 versus 3. But then looking into the future, having those 3 additional allows us to do a little bit more. Here's what we didn't know when we submitted the request, and when you were gracious enough to bring this forward to the council, we didn't know what Rich's status was for this year. We knew that he was going to be retiring. I mean, he was of age. We didn't know it was going to be this year. With his exit at the end of the year, this became more or less the priority. Here's the other thing that we're learning. We just lost another paid on premises lieutenant to resignation. Different things happening within his life to the point where he could not maintain the requirements for staffing and training. That said, now we have 0 paid on premises lieutenants, and that's typical of what we're seeing within our industry, having people stick around long enough to be able to reach that promotable service length. You don't want to promote somebody to a first-line leadership position when they've only had 2 or 3 years on the department. It doesn't necessarily speak to the experience and exposure that's needed. So that's another reason why we asked for these 3 lieutenants last year, knowing full well that we're more likely to keep our career staff than we are a paid-on-premises employee. Typically, our paid-on-premises employees last about 3 to 5 years before they find employment where they can do it full-time. And the benefit in that is it's a recruitment tool in the sense that we lose people because we're training people to the point where they're marketable just about anywhere. And until we have enough spots available, we'll just always lose people. That said, it makes a whole lot of sense to have a predictable career staff that can bring our personnel through their training and make sure that we have the capability of training the next generation firefighter that's following those that left. One of the reasons why we have the people apply for the City of Fitchburg Fire Department is they know what they're going to get in the way of training. They know they're going to get the exposure that they need that reflects that of the current day fire service, and a lot of them are employed. We just had 3 of our intern firefighters employed by the City of Green Bay, the City of Madison, and 1 was employed by Akron, Ohio.
So we are a training school.
We are, a AAA farm club. It's one way of looking at it. We are a training organization until we invest more in full-time staff, which will eventually happen as the city gets bigger. We're just trying to make that so that it's sustainable. I can't tell you I need 10 people and expect that we're going to be able to fund it next year.
Yeah.
I can tell you that over the course of time, we need to address staffing so that it's gradually increased, and then we're not sitting in a situation where we have to employ 10 people all at once. I would prefer that not be the case.
So, can I do I don't know. So, this is why I think I have high expectation for the staffing study that we are planning to do, because I think now it's like each department is competing, and some of them is like the most powerful sometime, or is the one who survive and the staffing position is approved. We don't have a plan. This is my concern as a city. We need to have a staffing plan for the next 5 to 10 years in each department and determine, okay, how we're going to grow, how many we are going to have. So every time a budget time, it's not like each department is fighting for people. We should have that. And this is what I have high expectation about this. I don't know when it's going to be moved forward to approve this, but I think the city really need to have a staffing planning, because otherwise, we shouldn't be doing this right now. You know what I mean? If we have a good staffing plan, But, I don't have, I am in favor of it, but my biggest concern is, is losing the $22,000, because to be honest, I don't know it's going to be feasible in the 2023 budget. You know what I mean? So
we're always made aware of the tight budget. We also know that as a growing community, eventually the tax base has to stabilize to basically reflect the number of occupancies you have within your community. But governments have a tendency of being slightly behind the need, just knowing that there's other things that need to be in place, infrastructure and so forth. I will not disagree with you in the sense that I know that there's a number of department heads that are going to come up here and educate you on everything that they need as well. And that's exactly why I believe that municipal staffing study will serve the city of Fitchburg well in the way of providing recommendations for optimal growth.
All right, I think we can probably go ahead and take a vote on this. Elder Maldonado, do you have anything? Okay, and can I make a request that you include this in the agenda packet for finance and council next week?
And I'll actually just forward it to all of the council members anyway.
Okay,
so,
great. But it'd be great to have it in the packet too, just so it's
absolutely.
It's all there. All those in favor of resolution?
It's for the people that they're going to read that. If you can, I know that you know your language, but POC, put in parentheses, what does it mean, POX? Because some people go and read this, they want to say, what is that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Where are you seeing that? Oh, POX?
POX or POC service budget, so people say, what does it mean, just the POC service budget? You know what I mean? So put in parentheses what it is so people understand if someone else is reading this.
Sure.
Okay.
Great. All those in favor of resolution R10322, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for your consideration.
We can move on to item D, employee handbook updates. Sarah?
All right, I'm going to share my screen on the packet. So part of the packet was the employee handbook updates. We start out at promotion and reclassification. So in going through this, we realized that we were allowing our new hires to negotiate where they fell on the pay scale, but we weren't doing the same for our current employees that went for promotions. So really, we're trying to give the same opportunity to current employees that go through a competitive recruitment process to be able to negotiate their salary. So it's really just trying to reflect that. And in addition, we have reclassifications all the time. Well, not all the time, usually about 3 per year. And so we never really addressed what the pay increase would be for reclassification. So we wanted to ensure that a current employee that's reclassified is able to receive at least a 5% increase in pay at the step in which their position now falls at. So it's really trying to add some clarification to reclassification and making sure our current employees are treated the same as new hires. So there's a number of different updates. So I'll just kind of go through them. If you have questions, just feel free to stop me. The next employee handbook update we have here is regarding travel and training. So really trying to provide some more clarification, traveling with, instead of just spouse, sometimes people bring a partner with them, whether it's a friend, a relative. So really wanted to reflect that that was okay. And then also sometimes employees choose to extend their stay when they're on a business trip, so for different personal reasons. So we wanted to make sure that employees knew that that is okay. It's just that the city is only responsible for expenses that would have been incurred while they were there for a business reason. And then we go on to talk about transportation expenses, such as air travel, and making sure that we talk a little bit about baggage fees and.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, of
So there seems like there's an intentional change from reimbursement to city payment. Does that mean we're switching more to the city pays up front versus requiring an employee to pay and be reimbursed on the back end?
Right. So most city employees have a P card or purchasing card, so they'll be able to use that to make these purchases rather than being reimbursed.
Okay, that seems like that's a good policy,
Yep.
make sure that people aren't having to put money out. Okay, great.
Absolutely. So then we get into seat assignments. Sometimes people want to pick their seats, so we do talk about that a little bit, that a seat assignment fee up to $50 per round trip are city expenses, where we didn't really clarify that in the past. And the last part of travel, just really that if an employee chooses to travel to or from an alternate location, that the difference in the cost between the alternate flight and the lowest cost for city purposes must be documented. So just making sure employees are providing all of the necessary paperwork that we need before approving. And then with the COVID pandemic, of course, we get into flights being canceled and what about flight insurance coverage? And that may be approved by the department head in certain circumstances, so depending on kind of what's going on. So that's just the travel updates there. Nothing really substantive changed. It's just trying to provide more clarification and answering questions we've had in the past but haven't been able to point back to in the employee handbook. The next change here is related to tuition reimbursement. So some of our employees are attending, rather getting their undergraduate degree or attending graduate school. And we have a current employee that brought this up who is in graduate school. He's attending. It's a really hard university that he's attending. It's almost impossible just to get a C. And so brought up the fact that, I'm a full-time employee and we have other employees that are getting tuition, and that if they're getting A, B, or C and pass, whether or not the city would be behind 100% tuition reimbursement. So keeping in mind that employees are going to school, they have other things going on, and they're working full-time, we wanted to, instead of just giving 100% tuition reimbursement back if it's A or B, to also give it if it's a C or pass. Of course, if someone gets a D, F, or fail, they do not get any kind of reimbursement for tuition.
Okay, that one was my question. Okay.
Right. So that was the tuition reimbursement. Oh, yeah.
Question. Do you have in this policy if because in my job, we have in our employee handbook, if the company pay you for tuition and then you leave the next year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have that time frame because we cannot leave from 2 years.
Yeah, we have a tuition reimbursement payback policy. I didn't include that in here, but we have a whole policy on that. So there is some parameters for having to pay back if they use it and then leave right away. So absolutely. The next part is sick leave. So as you know, with the pandemic, we had this public health emergency. So we wanted our employees were able to use future accrued sick time during the pandemic. We wanted to be able to, in the future, if there's another public health emergency, allow employees to use future accrued sick time, but only limited up to the next 12 months following the month of the request. We didn't want to give them unlimited use to be able to tap into years in the future of sick leave, but really just the next year of sick leave. So if someone, for example, is brand new to the city and doesn't have a sick leave bank, the goal would be if there's a public health emergency, they can start to use any future accrued leave within the next 12 months. And again, this would be so that our employees don't have to be in an unpaid status. This would be for not just new hires, but even employees who've been here but maybe have a really low sick leave bank. So the goal would then be able to help them pay for the time that they're away. Of course, they would have to pay back any time used if they leave and they overuse their time. The second part of the sick leave policy is something regarding new employees. So in the past, last year, we brought to the Personnel Committee the ability for new hires to negotiate vacation time. And it used to be something that the Personnel Committee had to approve. You approved the ability for the city administrator in consultation with the finance manager or finance director and the HR manager to be able to help negotiate an approved vacation amount. We'd like to do the same for sick leave. So as we get new employees, it's harder to recruit. We'd like the opportunity to be able to negotiate a sick leave bank for employees coming in, but not to exceed what a current employee would have based on their comparable years of experience. But it would just be another recruitment tool. We already can do that, but we have to bring it to you for approval. So what we're hoping to do is be able to have the city administrator approve it in consultation with the finance director and HR manager.
I do have one question about the first section. So the allowing people to use sick leave, like create a negative balance for sick leave, is specifically about a public health emergency. Is there no flexibility to do that for like on a case-by-case basis? Or is it only doing it sort of in case of a continued pandemic or a new pandemic? Yeah,
we established only for a public health emergency in this policy. We didn't have it on a case-by-case basis or for extenuating circumstances. We just talked about a public health emergency at this time.
But people, so if someone was just hired and they had to go out on sick leave, they're eligible for... They could take unpaid time.
They could take unpaid time, absolutely.
So there's some flexibility in terms of being able to take time off. Okay.
Absolutely, yep. The next section is a hard section because we had our first employee death in a really long time. So we realized that we really didn't talk about what happens if you die while you're employed here. We wanted to make sure that if someone becomes permanently disabled or dies while being a current employee, that they receive their entire unused sick leave bank and that's paid out. We'd also like to increase the payout of $10,000 per year to $25,000 per year. This just helps, this is for retirees that leave. You only get your sick leave paid out to you if you retire from the city or you become disabled or you pass away. So by allowing them to take more than $25,000, that's again only for retirees. If you're permanently disabled or die, you'll receive your entire amount. There's no maximum there. Sometimes retirees don't want to take their payments, their sick leave payments. They want to just keep it here. So we're just adding in there, retirees can choose to suspend payments for up to 2 years. It's just adding in kind of what the practice has been. We just realized it wasn't in the employee handbook that we even allowed for retirees to suspend their sick leave payouts after they leave. So we wanted to add that in there.
I want to understand, how many hours can be that, you can accumulate in your sick leave bank?
So you can accrue up to quite a bit. So it's 1,440 hours that a full-time or part-time employee can get up to typically, after 20 years or so. They accrue 8 hours every month. So that's how much you accrue in sick leave.
So you don't have the policy that, that you need to, by the end of the year, if you don't use it, you lose it.
So it does say here that employees who shall receive payment of an amount equivalent to the value of the accrued and unused sick leave not to exceed 1120 hours. So they do get it paid out to them if they get over the threshold, and that's actually in another section of the employee handbook, so let me bring that up. Yeah, we do have some information on that. I don't have it handy.
Okay, it's fine. I am trying to understand that this is a very generous
it doesn't happen very often, but when people do hit the maximum of what you can have in your bank, then they're I believe that's paid out to them. Let's see.
Doesn't work in corporate like that.
Let's see. I just want to take a peek here while I've got you here. Whoops. It's a good question.
$1,040 is 26 weeks if you work 40 hours a week, half a year. Yeah.
Oops.
Up to 6 months, you can bank up to 6 months of.
Well, my computer's being kind of wonky right now, so
We can follow up with that.
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, I will follow up with you on that for sure. So I'm going to close this out. The next change that we have here, let me close this out, is going to be shift differential. So this is a good change. In the past, we were only giving shift differential to police sergeants and police telecommunicators and civilian service employees. We do have an evening custodian, and we have 2 FACT TV employees who work consistently between the hours of 2:45 p.m. and 11 p.m. The goal by updating this language is that we'll give shift differential now to our evening custodian and our 2 FACT TV employees, in addition to our police sergeants. What we did, and police telecommunicators who are full-time and the civilian service employees, the on-call police telecommunicators, we added them to the hourly pay plan, and we added the shift differential into their pay. So they see it as well, just in a different way. So basically what the shift differential is they get an additional 50 cents per every hour worked for any hours worked, for all hours worked actually, because they're consistently and regularly assigned a shift between 2:45 p.m. and 11 p.m. So it basically reflects what is being done in the contract, the CBA, and that's the shift differential is supposed to mirror that. As you can see at the top, it says police sergeants are eligible for shift differential according to the same terms and conditions as specified in the police officer CBA. So we're still following that. We just added that we want to add it for all part-time and full-time employees who work those shifts. So it's opening the door a little bit. It's not like we have a lot. It's just 3 employees. But again, these 3 new employees would see a shift differential added for all hours worked.
I think this is a good change. The only question I have in terms of, so I assume that for the police bargaining, their shifts are very specific amounts of time, 8, 10, 12 hours. Is that?
And they get the shift differential for the entire shift that they work. So all hours worked, if they're regularly assigned a second or third shift.
Great. So but my question about for applying it to non-represented staff is that I assume that you could have a 2-hour shift or a 4-hour shift. And so it's always going to be like an 8-hour block of time.
It's typically, so our police telecommunicators are full-time, our civilian service employees, our evening custodian, FACT TV, they typically work the full shifts, the 8-hour shifts.
Okay.
FACT TV is a little different sometimes. It might not be a full 8, but for all the hours that they work, they will get that shift differential added on because they're regularly and consistently scheduled to work a second shift.
Okay.
Second or third shift.
Thanks.
And then the last update is regarding uniform allowance. In the old employee handbook, we talked about how our non-represented police staff mirror the contract when it comes to uniform allowance. So really, this is just updating to make it clear that, yes, this for all the non-represented police employees, they have the exact same uniform clothing allowance, which is the $725 instead of $600. We are doing this effective 1/1 of 23, the clothing allowance for these employees. Although there are some other parameters with this. There is a check going to be issued in July for the uniform or clothing allowance, but the $725 will be effective 1/1 of 23. They're only going to see $350 in July. So if they already spent the non-represented employees, if they already spent their clothing allowance this year, they'll have through June of this year to spend that. If they didn't spend it, they'll get it reimbursed to them after September. Am I butchering that? Yeah. Yeah.
So because there's been a lot of moving parts with this one, as well as the change to the collective bargaining agreement with the police officers, it has led to us talking this over quite a bit, and also talking with the police department in regards to the non-represented police employees that you see listed here and what their desired preference would be. So ultimately, our police, non-represented police employees will continue under the existing system through the end of the year, and they will transition to the new system that mirrors the collective bargaining agreement January 1 of 2023.
just have one question that's more of a curiosity.
Yeah.
Obviously, police, fire, EMS, they have uniforms that they have to purchase.
Yep.
Do we ever require, other staff to have Fitchburg branded clothing? And if so, do we provide a reimbursement for that?
We don't require it. If it's not required, you can purchase it, but then you have to pay for it out of your own pocket.
I see it. Chad might have something.
Parks Department.
Oh, besides, I mean, those are required departments.
okay.
So I'm talking about like city hall staff, economic development, HR, finance. I mean, if they wanted city issue clothing, they have to pay for it and they're not reimbursed for it.
So it's
but of
really
course, your public works, so, your employees that are out and about, public safety, public works, they do have uniform allowances and they're paid, for all that.
Fantastic. Are there any other questions in regards to these updates? Do you need a vote on this?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll move to approve the employee handbook updates as outlined in the agenda packet.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
We'll move on to item E, HR report.
Yeah, so we've been super busy. We've had a lot of hires. It's hard to believe. You're looking at just the first section there, part-time and full-time hires. That comes, I mean, if you look at the total there, I think almost as many as we've hired just in this first half of the year is how much we've hired in a full year in years past. So you're looking at 21 permanent new hires and about 31 limited-term seasonal hourly hires. So it's been a really busy time for recruitment. Some of these positions are brand new due to the town of Madison. Some of them are due to turnover. So we have a number of recruitments in progress that are not counted above. We had administration intern interviews last week. We're currently in the background steps for the community service officer in the PD. That's like your civilian service employee. We have interviews for the community service liaison, which works with court. And then we have a couple of positions in the background steps. And we have a police officer recruitment right now. So police has been very busy. We hired 6 brand new police officers just this year. And then if you go, yeah.
Well, these 6 new, they are replacement or they are new positions?
So there are a couple new, the majority of them are replacing people. Yep. We've had a high amount of people retire this year. So you're going to see turnover since January. We had a records clerk retire. We have a couple of police officers retire. That should actually say civilian service employee. Oh, no, we have that on there. So you can see all the retirements. We've got quite a bit. And then you can see other reasons why people are leaving. The growth opportunity seems to be the big thing. We had a career firefighter leave to be in a higher level position. Our associate planner left for growth opportunity. Our community development planner. So it's, we're smaller. We don't have as many tiers or career ladders and opportunities for growth. People wear a lot of hats here. So that's one, opportunity maybe in the future if we can try to have some growth opportunities to keep employees. And then we also had an employee transfer to Public Works. You can see the additional reasons there for some of the other positions. One was living in Milwaukee and just wanted to be closer to home. So the initiatives HR is working on this year. So Carlson Detman, our consultant, they're almost done with our market polls. So we'll have results on that at the end of this month. So then we can get those numbers to Misty to kind of figure out what we're working with and what it will look like for any kind of pay adjustments that are needed and bring that as part of the budget process. I also reached out regarding getting a quote for mayor and council salaries and what that implementation process would look like. I have not had a chance to hear back or haven't heard back from the consultant on that. What we could do is we could do that research ourselves. We could reach out to different city administrators and find out what their council pays. And I think speaking with Chad and what he's aware of is that typically it's something that's implemented like 3 years out so that, it's voted on and it doesn't affect anyone who's on staff right now. Yeah.
I can't recall if I sent this to you, but I actually reached out. Apparently there was some data compiled by Middleton.
Oh, perfect.
And I was emailed the information, so I can forward that to you.
That would be
but you
great.
might also want to reach out to Middleton. And
That information was shared with, Middleton did that in 2018, and they shared that information was 18 or 17. And that information, the city has that information, because I think that I forward that information to the previous city administrator.
We have a lot of information. I think we looked at this in 2019 before the pandemic. We had a listing of what all of the different municipalities were paying council members and the mayor, and we had options. I think we had a couple of ideas of what the pay increase could be, and even implementation thoughts and ideas, but then the pandemic hit and it kind of got put on hold.
I think with that, I think the controversial part is going to be, selling that, why it's so important, especially with the taxpayer.
Yep.
And the reason that this, salary had not been adjusted since 1994, is, you know what I mean? So I think we need to put in order, if we are going to do that, and maybe, I agree that maybe we can do it starting in 2025 or 2026. It should be a good press release of why we are doing this, so we need to have the buyout from the taxpayer,
Right.
But yeah, so I think it's very important if we want to recruit different people, or people with different backgrounds, profession, maybe young people with young kids, to the council, we need to have we need to update our salaries.
Right. Does the committee have any thoughts on next steps or how you'd like to proceed with? I mean, would you like to see a summary of Middleton's numbers or any updates to those? And because we can try to target another personnel committee meeting to maybe get into some of that, or staff, Chad and I can look at that and kind of talk about next steps.
I think we need to, we need to have like 2 or 3 comparable cities our size, and how much they're paying their, their council member, and also consider the amount of how many commission also those alder participate too, because maybe you have the same city, but they participate in 2 commission, and maybe in Fitchburg, at least we have to be in 4. I don't know. So, also compared to, how many committees alder they need to participate.
Okay.
So I just sent the spreadsheets that I have, but I think it would be interesting to reach out to municipalities that have recently done this and see what their process was, because my understanding is that Middleton did this in the recent past, and then I know McFarland did it recently as well.
Madison.
And maybe
Madison is bigger. But.
Yeah, I feel like the outlying municipalities might be more analogous for us, but it would be interesting to see what their process was and see what steps they went through and see if we can mirror that.
Yep, agreed.
Let's not reinvent the wheel if people have done it before.
That's a great idea. And then HR did complete drafting a few policies that are being reviewed right now. So one was a paid parental leave policy, one was a volunteer day policy, and then, of course, the bilingual incentive policy with the help of the focus group. So all 3 of those were reviewed by the city attorney, and then I need to meet with administration and just find out if, how we might be able to move forward with those, if that's something we'll be able to move forward with. And then we just held audiogram testing, but we're going to hold another day. It's like a makeup day, so that'll be August 25th. And then the city's diversity and inclusion ERG is working on a survey for all staff. They have created kind of like a climate check survey, and so they're going to be sending that to the mayor and city administrator for review before we send it out. Yeah, absolutely. We have a meeting this Thursday. And then, of course, HR is continuing work on going paperless. So the trends in HR is something I shared with you last time. It's just, talking about how we're having some issues with recruiting and retaining. But you know what? We're getting almost fully staffed in engineering, which feels really great. So Anna starts June 21st. So we will be fully staffed there. And we are filling positions. We actually will be at the Dane County Job Center tomorrow for a job fair. To highlight any of our openings that we have right now. And it's feeling a lot better than months ago.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask a question, Chair? So it's great that we are hiring, but also I would like to see in your future trend in HR, or is what are what you're doing to retain employee?
Yep.
What are the retention policies? You know, what are, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, we have, you know, we hire all the people that we need, and what next? You know what I mean? How we want to be sure that the people that we hire, at least we can keep it in the organization. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And this is what I said, you know, I mentioned about the state interview.
Yep.
You know, it could be a tool to, you know. But, you know, focus also on retention policy too.
Yep. Absolutely. That's kind of the basis for creating some of those new benefit policies, like the paid parental leave and the volunteer day and the bilingual incentive, is to try to look at ways we can provide new benefits to retain our talented employees.
Can I say something? But also it means how is the environment in the department? You know, you know what I mean? Like, you can have all the best benefits and, you know, but also be sure that the supervisor that are supervising the people, they have the tool to supervise new people. You are sitting the right person or connecting the right person with the right supervisor. You know what I mean? All of that stuff, because 80% of the people, when they leave an office, is because of the relation with their manager or with superior. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So this is other thing that, you know.
Yep. Yeah, that makes me think of like a mentoring program too for new hires. Would be really great to get started at the city of Fitchburg. So,
Sarah, is there a good way for us to advertise? Because some of our policies are fantastic. Is there a good way for us to advertise that as part of the recruitment process, to say, because benefits are a huge part of it?
oh yeah, absolutely. We include our benefit summary. We have like a nice little packet of benefits, and it's always included on every job posting, so they can just click on it, and it takes them to a nice summary of everything that we offer. So, yeah, if you look at any of our job postings, we even have it on the HR webpage. So if you go to the HR page on the city's website, you're going to see a benefit summary on there. Our employee handbook's out there. Links to everything is out on that HR page.
But you know what other companies are doing that I am noticing, and my company is doing, is that, you know, our recruiter.
Yeah.
She's promoting, you know, she continually posts stuff and say why it's so great to work at Wagner CPA, you know, and this is the benefit, you know, for each, you know what I mean? So this is a way to, in Lincoln, you know what I mean? That you're constantly there, you know what I mean? Like, why you should come to work with that? What are the benefits, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, we're always looking at what we can do a little bit differently. You know, we're trying to reword things, especially on our job postings, on our advertisements, looking at different places that we're posting. So, yeah, we always have an eye on that, on trying some new things when it comes to recruiting. So that is the HR report for now. I know, do you have any questions regarding the report, or anything you'd like to see on the next one? Aside from how are we retaining?
I think it looks good. You know, always impressed by the work you're doing. So
Thank you.
great work.
Thank you.
And if there are no additional questions, I think we'll move on to the next item. Item F, Ad Hoc DEI Committee and Cities Equity Audit.
Can I go? I asked to include this in the agenda because I want to know, as a city is growing, and because of the diversity and that we have in our city population, and also to provide opportunity to everyone, if the city have considered in the future to do an equity audit. I know some municipalities are doing this. Is what I know about this. It's expensive, but I think maybe we need to start thinking about, in future budget, if we can allocate some money to do an equity audit for the organization. I don't know, we are going to do the staffing audit and study, but something like, we want. The idea is to be sure that we are providing, there are no systematic barriers inside the organization that prevent people to growth or to achieve the same opportunity, and also the interaction, also as a community, that we are a very diverse community. So, and also to determine if when we are planning or driving new development, we are looking at with an equity lens, So I don't know, that one is something that I want to plant the seed,
Are there other municipalities that have gone to do an equity audit? Do you know how they went about it? Do you have any recommendations?
Check with San Prairie.
Okay,
They are doing it right now.
got it.
And so, yeah.
Okay.
Are those audit, can you remind me the staffing audit and potentially this, is that something that's included in the CIP? Is there an HR CIP, or is that not capital?
No, this
It's going to be an operating budget.
Yeah.
Those were actually included in the ARPA and TID conversation.
Okay.
So that's where we anticipate the funding coming from, and you'll see those presented. That was part of that first budget amendment that was just passed by the council.
Great. And then Alder Rutherford mention of the ad hoc DEI committee. That could be where the conversation about Spanish translation and interpretation lives. And then you could have a broader discussion about different things. But obviously that's part of inclusion, is making sure that people have access to our city.
Right, and you're looking at, not from an employee standpoint, but this is a community standpoint, looking at the projects. This is not really employee-based, correct?
No, it's more like they look at the organization and they look at all the departments and determine is how, how the municipalities approaching, they have the process and procedure in place to look with equity lens, and also for the employee, because there are some group of employee that they don't have the same opportunity to other groups. You know what I mean? To determine if there are any barriers. Yeah, we don't have that issue. I don't think so, because we are mostly, I don't think there is a very diverse group of people working in the city, the staff. But I think more looking at if there are other systematic barrier inside the organization that when we look at development of new projects, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So if we are considering, we are looking everything, you know what I mean? And I don't know, so.
Yeah, in my view, I would say that it's an external committee should be, like the equivalent of a RCC or Transportation Transit, an ad hoc committee like that.
You're talking about the.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, just because the mention in the items that ad hoc DEI committee. I guess when you say that, it means more. It means to me like an equivalent committee that's temporary that can analyze this.
Yeah.
And maybe we use an equity audit. Maybe we talk about translation. Maybe it's something that's standing that meets a few times a year to deal with these issues that crop up, because it doesn't fit in personnel, but it also doesn't necessarily fit in any other committee. So it seems like we might have to create something separate to deal with those issues.
Yeah, I remember when Jason Gonzalez was the mayor, he tried to create this group, but it never had traction. So because it's about the composition of the committee, who you want sitting on those committee, and what is the objective, you know what I mean? And I know that the city of San Prairie has one, and they have a very robust system. They are almost 35,000 population, so it's kind of like our comparable city. And I was impressed with the information that I found that they have in this committee, and all the things that they accomplished. But this is planted the seed. How we can do this. In the right way. Because I am not an expert on this at all, but maybe it's a conversation that you should have with your internal group,
There's some really neat tools. We used to use a tool, it was an RESJ tool you bring stakeholders together to talk about potential developments and how that would impact. So it wasn't necessarily employee-based, but it's pulling the right people around the table, using a tool to impact, to see where the impact was going to be. So I think that was from like GARE, or the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, that they have some good tools out there. So this ad hoc committee could use. But yeah, I can bring this up at our ERG meeting on Thursday and just see if anyone has any thoughts or ideas.
I can send you the link up for the city of Sun Prairie.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I think we can go ahead and move on to item 5, announcements. Anything from you, Sarah?
No, I don't have any announcements.
Great. And then we'll move on to item 6, adjournment. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 5:37 p.m. Thanks.